Hi, my name's Ryan Freeman. Welcome to episode 8 of my first backpacking trip to Europe. If you have not watched from the beginning of the series, click above and it will take you to episode 1. This is episode 8. Where we left off in the last episode, Paul and I had slept 2 nights on the streets of Florence. We had seen some of the sights. We had had some troubles. We had surmounted those obstacles. We felt proud because, we were without any guide. Bob, we had left in Switzerland, great memories in Switzerland, plans to return to Switzerland, but now Paul and I were on our own. We were carving our own destiny. It was in our hands. What would become of us? Would we find European princesses to marry or would we get into intrigue and danger? What was to be our fate? This was constantly on our minds and in our imagination. We were 2 21-year-olds with all of our belongings on our back, with some inspirational books. I mostly the Bible. Paul Travels with Charlie and Into the Wild by Krakauer, whatever. The two of us, best friends, we had been friends since 7th grade, and our friendship becoming deeper by the day as we went through problems together and even had conflicts amongst each other that we were able to deal with. So we were learning a lot about each other. We were learning a lot about ourselves. We were learning a lot about the world. And so this was the biggest moment in our lives. But to say that we didn't have doubts would be an understatement. We had, actually no, it would be an overstatement. We had a lot of doubts. And I'm going to get to that in a second. So we left Florence after just 2 nights, and we wanted to get to Greece. We had heard that Greece, you could camp. We had tents. I had a tent. He had a tent. We had sleeping bags. So we were prepared to camp, and we wanted to save money, and we wanted to get to the beach. But in order to do that, we had to leave Florence, and we had to go to the port town of Bari. So we took a train and landed in Bari. And we had heard that Bari was a port town on the coast of Italy, and we had heard that it was somewhat dangerous. We had heard that there were a lot of pickpockets, there were some rough elements in this city, and I don't know if that played on our imagination or how accurate our perceptions were, but as we sort of landed in the train station of Bari and started to move around, we did notice quite a lot of seedy young guys looking left and right, motorpads, motorcycles, scooters, whatever, Vespas. Guys would just squirm right around us, even on the sidewalk. And we were 2 sort of, American guys who sort of stood out with their big nylon backpacks. And we were, I guess, a little nervous. And so we decided to do something very different than what we did in Florence. We actually sprung for a hotel. Couldn't find a budget hotel. We found a pretty fancy hotel. I think it's a 4-star hotel. It cost us 60 euros for a night. And we felt happy because we were splurging. We were going to have luxury, air conditioning, big comfortable bed, big bathroom where I went to work on my feet. My feet had a lot of grime on them. That's kind of details you might not want to know, but part of traveling, is the wear and tear on your body and how do you upkeep yourself. And so for me, I spent I said this is gross, okay, but I had all this dead skin. My feet are just sort of tough feet, and I go barefoot a lot, and I've just been through a lot with my feet, even at that young, tender age of 21. So I just remember scraping off all of this dead skin using a knife, and it was just nasty, sorry. But I'm just remembering these images for the first time in 18 years, and it still gives me the creeps. So we felt happy. We were splurging. We had saved money in Florence by not spending anything, but now we were spending 60 euros for one night, and that also weighed on me. So we sort of had this sort of, who doesn't like luxury? Who doesn't like air conditioning in Europe's hottest summer? Who doesn't like a nice comfy bed? Who doesn't like safety and security? But at the same time, we were out there to prove our mettle. This was somewhat, neither one of us went to the military, neither one of us took part in any great initiation rites with the tribe like young men did hundreds and thousands of years ago. So this was sort of our chance to prove ourselves to us and to our family back home. And here we are at a 4-star hotel. Goodness gracious. Anyways, we spent there one night, then got on to a ferry, went down to the dock, bought a ticket, and spent like, I don't know, a long time, maybe half a day or a whole day on a ferry as it took us over to Greece. And in Greece, we went through immigration and ended up taking a bus to Athens. And so I'm going to read you a journal entry from my journal, 18 years old, where I have my thoughts and reflections that I've written down. And so I'm going to read you what I wrote when I was first in Athens in the hotel. So this is June 26, 2003, Thursday. We arrived in Athens today, and its business goes on around us as we relax in our budget inn. I feel a long ways away from home. Today, when I checked my email, my family did not reply to my last message or send me any updates. I wonder if my homelessness in Florence has shamed them. I wonder if this trip was a wise idea. I cannot help but feel like the prodigal son. Sometimes I wish I were back in Whittier where it is comfortable and near all my loved ones. Then I would be ashamed that I let myself down and did not live up to this adventure's potential. At times I feel a great sadness and depression. Then later I feel excitement and joy. I really do hope that I am not wasting my time. I beg God to show or reveal something to me. I want something special out of this trip. I pray and ask the Father for it. So you can see that I was going through a mix of emotion, as anyone does when they go through an adventure where they're exposed to extraordinary ecstasies and delights and new experiences and new people and new friends and all of the joy that comes with an adventure, but also the hardships, also the sadness, also the homesickness. So all of this was taking place in me. And I would email my family once in a while. I didn't want to be in too close a contact. Paul was a little more close with his family, and he had his girlfriend of about 6 years at that time that he was contacting a little more frequently than me, but I still was human, and I still wanted to know how they were, and I wanted them to know how I was. And the last email that I had sent them, obviously from Florence, maybe it was Bari, that we had stayed homeless. And when I didn't get a reply from them, I was sad. I felt ashamed. I felt like the prodigal son, I said. The prodigal son, if you remember from the biblical story, the prodigal son is the one of this great ranchers or farmer sons who sort of takes his inheritance early, goes around the world, indulges in pleasures and travels and reveling, and ends up losing all of his money, sort of has nothing and has to crawl back home. He's the prodigal son, sort of the wayward child. So I felt like that. I felt like that actually a lot throughout this trip because, you know, I grew up in a very conservative home, American Baptist, with a very sort of proper, positive type of outlook on life, what was good, what was bad. And here I was, you know, drinking beer every day, breaking bottles of wine over wrought iron gates to open them barbarically, smooching with strange girls, hanging out with my Uncle Bob, who sort of resembles the great god Pan. He's like a satyr from the forest who charms girls and boys into revelries. And gets them naked. Now, he didn't do anything to me, don't worry. But, you know, I was exploring a side of life that was outside the pale of my family back at home. And I had two feelings. I had one that this is awesome. I cannot believe that my family back home has not been to Europe, has not partied with Uncle Bob, has not gone on moonlit walks along crystal clear lakes with the beautiful Swiss women. I cannot believe that they're not smoking joints in Swiss castles with Swiss young people and then rocking out to Bob Marley. I can't believe my family's missing out on this. But I had another side of me, the side that, still had my Christian Southern Baptist conscience and education, which was, Ryan, you are on the wrong path. You should be going to church with your family and not fooling around in sin. So anyone who grew up religious knows what I'm talking. Anyone who grew up religious and then, explored the world knows what I'm talking about. Maybe everyone knows what I'm talking about in some relative degree. But the more strongly religious you are, sort of the more you're deprived of the other side of life, because Christianity in general, as at least one aspect of it, one general aspect, it doesn't necessarily relate to all Christians, but to a broad swath of evangelicals, is this side of life is good and this side of life is bad. And I grew up in this side of life. It didn't mean I was perfect, but I was always trying to stay within these bounds. And now all of a sudden I was exploring this side a little bit. And I was getting rewarded with feelings of joy, feelings of ecstasy, feelings of life, like everything tasted better. Everything was more vivid. I was excited and enraptured from within. So it definitely felt right biologically and from within me. But then, sort of psychologically, I still had that conscience saying, you're on the wrong path, Ryan. Would your mother approve of that? And so, this is my biggest complaint about religions, because when it narrows your experience in life so to only one realm, one area, and the other side is demarcated as negative or off limits, well, life is amazing. I'm not saying that you should go and do anything you want in the world. I'm not an antinomian by all means, but when you are denying some of the fundamental intuitions of yourself and your gut and your heart, where it's taking you to these amazing places and meeting these incredible people and dancing and singing and reveling and not causing harm, but enjoying life. See, this is one of the big issues that a lot of philosophers have had with Christianity. And I only know this because I had an issue with Christianity and I wanted to understand it in more eloquent terms. But it's basically, it's a denial of a big portion of life. A big portion of this world. Not of this world is sort of the Christian, mantra. And well, this world's fucking amazing if you actually explore it. And you get out of those narrow confines of your mind that sort of keep you away from actually experiencing what a beautiful world, what a beautiful people, what a beautiful life that we're given. I'm not saying that everything's beautiful, but so much of it is. And I think not only Christianity, but society to a large measure tries to scare us about how the world's so dangerous. In fact, a lot of people said Europe would be dangerous. Well, it wasn't dangerous. We slept on the streets in a city. People said to watch your back. And we were fine. And we met so many amazing people that, this was the big takeaway from the entire trip. I'll talk more at the conclusion of this video series, but just how safe this world is and how amazing it is. It's so much of our fear and our apprehension. It doesn't come from our actual experiences. Yes, sometimes we do. We do get traumatized from actual experiences. But a lot of it, the general layer of it that hangs over all of us, we get from the news, we get from teachers, we get from society, stories, but not from our actual experience. But it's only actual experience is the prime data point for all of us. How we make up our mind about the world we live in and who we are. And so when you have the ability and the opportunity to go explore this world and to explore life, I don't think you should be afraid. I think you should go into it. Maybe take some caution. And we certainly did. We had money belts and we weren't, naively just wandering anywhere. But anyways, I guess that's enough for that rant. I didn't expect to do that. But anyways, so as you can see, I had this whole torrent of emotions, both good and bad. And we had arrived in Athens, and just to sort of surmise what happened there, we stayed in a budget inn, cost us like 31, 32 euros a night, had air conditioning, had a little color TV, so we were splurging. Felt good about it, having air conditioning, because Athens was hotter than Italy, and it was a bustling metropolis. In fact, even getting to the hotel, we're walking down these just congested. The traffic in Athens at that time, this is 2003, I had never seen traffic so congested, so awful. I mean, I grew up in LA with bad traffic. This traffic was terrible, honking all the time, bumper to bumper. People, I mean, it was just chaos. And even just getting to the hotel, I remember my friend Paul, because there was a lot of scooters and Vespas and little motor things that would pull up next to you as you're like in the pedestrian crosswalk. And my friend Paul, after we started moving, he looks down at his leg, and part of his calf, a big circle like that big, the circumference of a muffler, was charred, and it was like bubbled up cheese that has been melting too long. And he felt the pain after, the shock of what had happened. Maybe he had a little shock when it happened and looked down. I don't necessarily remember exactly how it happened, but basically a scooter pulled up right next to him, and the muffler just rested right on his calf. And I think he might even still have this scar to this day. I'll take a look next time I see him. So he just had this big red bubbled up like cheese that's been on a pizza for too long in the oven. It's nasty. So it was a hot summer, and on top of getting burned by a muffler certainly didn't make him more comfortable. But having that hotel, and then we would go out generally in the mornings, spend our days in the hotel probably for air conditioning. Now we went out in the day. There was a lot to see. Now at that time I didn't really know that much about Greek mythology. I had the basic gist of it. I have since gone on. Now I know a lot more. I've read the classics like Homer's The Iliad, the Odyssey. I've read a lot of I've read Plato. I've read some other Greek thinkers, and have read quite a lot of people talking about the Greeks. I'm very interested in Greek mythology today, and I learn it's one of the subjects I actually like to study ongoing. But at that time I didn't really know that much. But we went to the Parthenon, saw the Acropolis, saw all sorts of things that at that time we didn't really know what we were looking at. We just were going there, snapping photos. We remarked that Paul, with his curly hair and his strong features, looked a lot like the ancient Greeks. We had fun, and the nightlife was awesome. There were lots of restaurants and bars, and where they're so competitive about getting you as their customer that they would let you take in your beer, and you could drink on the street. So we would buy our beer. I forget the name of the beer. It was so cool. I think it was a red can. I don't necessarily remember. And we would drink while walking on the streets, and this guy who in the front, in front of the restaurant, come in here. And so the Greeks were very, I don't want to say aggressive, assertive. They're not shy. Come on, trying to get you in to whatever business they have, or their taxi or whatever, or their hotel. They want that tourist dollar. And so they're trying to get us in the restaurant. I'm like, can we bring the beer? He's like, yeah, bring the beer. And so we would bring our own beers into the restaurant, order a Greek salad, guys, because we were on a budget, so we weren't springing for steaks or anything like that. Guys, the Greek salads in Greece are freaking awesome. All of the vegetables, I went on a trip a year later around the Black Sea. All of the vegetables in that Mediterranean area, the tomatoes, the onions, the cucumbers, the olives, they pop. I mean, you go to the best organic store in Southern California, you do not get tomatoes that taste like these tomatoes. These tomatoes are ridiculous. The feta cheese or the white cheese piled on top is so good. The olive oil, the vinegar, the red wine vinegar, all of the ingredients. Very simple salad, but so good. And, as a budgeter, as someone who's trying to save money, I would smuggle in a loaf of bread from the market, and then I would just pour in the oil and vinegar and just sop it up with my loaf. Greek salad costs nothing, like a few euros at most. And my friend Paul, his favorite thing was the gyros, the gyros, those like sort of flatbread, kind of like a taco filled in with meat. They put French fries, that tzatziki sauce, whatever that was, probably some onions and some other stuff inside of it. We would see these little gyro places on the side of the road as we're walking, and we'd ask them how much, and if it was the right price, usually €1.25, €1.50, so cheap. It's probably triple, quadruple what it was back then. So cheap and so delicious. The meat, just cutting the meat off of the skewer while smoking a cigarette. But it is not hygienic from American standards, but it was authentic, and it was the best. Best food. I mean, in my opinion, Mediterranean food is the best food. I mean, there's a lot of great food. I love Indian food. I love Thai food. I love Chinese food. I love Japanese food. I love American and Mexican food. I love Italian food. But Mediterranean food, like Greek and Turkish food, Armenian food, that stuff is the best for me. It's just so flavorful, so refreshing, so delicious. So we're eating gyros, eating Greek salads, checking out these ancient Greek ruins from thousands of years ago. In Athens, the ancient capital of, sort of the beginning of, not the beginning of civilization. It's not Babylon or Cairo. Or Giza, but pretty big. Athens was a very important part of civilization. Europe and the way of our thinking would not be the same if it was not for Athens. And found a lot of Greek people who were very proud of their history. I did wonder in my head, well, what have you done in the last 2,000 years? But I didn't say that. But they do have quite a history to be proud of. Anyway, so that was Athens, and from there we decided to take a ferry and do a little island hopping where things got a lot more interesting. So the next episode's going to be very interesting. A little hot, a little dramatic maybe too. All right, my name's Ryan Freeman. Thank you for watching.